Identical twins of Reddit. What's the most embarrassing situation where you've been mistaken for your twin? My twin brother recommended a restaurant to me. Said that he and his wife went there all the time. Good food. Really friendly staff. So I took my wife there. Food was as advertised. But the service? Somewhere between cold and openly hostile. Like they resented our presence. I was puzzled by the contrast between what I'd heard and what I saw. Suddenly from the front of the restaurant. Explosion of laughter. Much rapid talking. Suddenly the waitress is there. Smiling and all. Just as my brother and his wife walk around the corner. They thought my brother was cheating on his wife with some blonde. Yeah. It's funny now. Not a twin. Just Asian. Constantly asked at work about projects I am not involved in. Realize co-workers think I am the other Asian guy. I went to a party once. And my bald identical twin bro had yet to arrive. His girlfriend was already there. So I gave her the obligatory friendly hug. Then sat on the other side of the room to hang out. This other guy, a mutual friend of his and hers, kept staring at me. Then staring at her. With this real nervous WTF look on his mug. For about 15 minutes. Every so often. This guy would look around nervously and then furiously text on his phone. Then my brother arrives. He kisses his girlfriend and says hi to everyone. And this guy blows up. Jesus, was no one going to say anything? What the duck was that? I thought he grew a full head of hair in a day. Edit. People keep asking. He's bald cause he shaves his head. My hair is receding but existent. Not me, but a co-worker has two sets of twin daughters. The younger pair are identical and both work at the same McDonald's. The manager often puts one on the pay window and the other on the food window just to mess with customers. Not an identical twin but married to one. When I was dating my wife, she and her twin sister had a bunch of friends over. I walked over to her and put my arm around her and she leaned into it. I leaned in for a kiss but then she pulled away. I thought, well, maybe she's not comfortable with a little peck in front of our friends since we hadn't been dating for too long. Then I scanned the room and made contact with my girlfriend. I looked back in awe that I had my arm around her sister, who was messing with me until things went too far. I then tucked my tail between my legs. Walked over to my girlfriend. Put my arm around her and said, well, will you give me a kiss? My twin brother had a huge stash of porno mags in his closet and I always wondered where he got the money to buy them. One night I walked into a nearby convenience store with some friends and the guy behind the counter threw me out. I had no idea why. When my friends asked, he told them he had caught me stealing porno mags the week before. My twin had recently committed suicide and I was at a bar drinking away my rage and a friend of his came up and flipped out on me saying how awful of a joke it was and took everything I had not to remove their teeth with my fist. My father is an identical twin. He was mistaken for my uncle while walking with a woman hand in hand down the street in London, England. The witness was a friend of my aunt. And immediately called her to accuse her husband of infidelity. She was at that moment sitting beside my uncle in Ontario, Canada. I was dating a girl in college. The first time I went to her house, she opened the door. I told her I liked what she did to her hair and kissed her. She kissed me. We went inside. She then yells, your boyfriend is here. They were weird girls. I've been called my twin sister's name my whole life. So one day I accidentally introduced myself to someone as her. When I caught and corrected myself after, they thought I was straight up crazy for not knowing my own name. Not a twin but dated one of two identical twins. They used to play pranks on me where they would pretend to be the other one, switch places to test me. That all stopped when I walked up to the wrong one, grabbed onto her butt, and told her some of the very explicit things I had planned for her booty later that night. Needless to say, one twin found it hysterical while the other one less so. Pretty much for the following 3 years we dated. The other twin used to say goodnight and guard your booty every time we went to bed. Edit. Really hope my ex doesn't see this : when we were in the 6th grade, my brother decided he wanted to stay at home because he wasn't feeling well. So far, there had never been a day where only one of us was at school, but I didn't think anything of it. I was walking down the hall and all of a sudden I was pulled in by a teacher who I had never seen before, and she started yelling at me, and I mean yelling at me, because I had skipped her class and I had the audacity to walk in front of her class right after. It was really awkward to just say, "UHH. I have an identical twin brother. My name is Jay's Wet." She of course thought I was making a terrible excuse, and I had to go get another teacher that knew I had a brother to come tell her that I was telling the truth. She never bothered me again. Other than that, we've never had a super embarrassing story. A friend and his wife go to the same supermarket every week. His identical twin also goes there with his wife. One day, after summoning up the courage, the cashier pulls my friend's wife aside and says, "I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I've seen your husband here several times with another woman." Embarrassing, I guess, more just totally terrible. We were out with friends and he decided to go to one of the back rooms, which was set up for a private party with bottle of spirit everywhere. Well, he decided to take a bottle and run off. Cut to me in the club and some bouncers come up to me and take me to a back room saying, "Oh, you're duck mate. We saw you on camera stealing a bottle blah blah." I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about and they thought I was just playing dumb to get away with it. "Stop it, mate. We got you on camera." Somehow finally convinced them I had a twin, so they fished him out and they eventually say we need to come back tomorrow to settle the damages. That didn't happen. Fast forward to about 2 weeks after, I'm staying at my GF's mum's house and get woken up by her mum at 6 AM. Target. The police are here. What? Got arrested and put in the police van where my twin is already sitting. Interviews, long waiting, disappointing polystyrene lunches. Get off with the warning. Thanks, John. Some girl decided to suggest that I date a guy that looked very much like me. Yes. Those were her words. "There's this guy who looks so much like you. You two should get together." Is his name? Yeah. You've met him? Yes. That is my brother. My father spent a year abroad before returning to enroll in the same college as his twin brother. The first few days were pretty standard. Acquaintances of my uncle mistaking my dad for him. Business as usual. That was until one girl approached him. Publicly, mind you. And with a wink said, "You were really great last night. I gave your number to a few friends. I hope you don't mind." Naturally, my dad went from there to immediately seek out and congratulate his brother on his good fortune, and hopefully share in the spoils. On the way he found himself receiving a disproportionate level of sly smiles and sidelong glances from some of the groups he passed. By the time he finally found my uncle, he was thoroughly perplexed. Surely his brother couldn't have been this lucky. They were good looking guys. But this was just ridiculous. My uncle flushed and faltered when confronted by my dad. He stammered and tiptoed around the issue before my dad finally got it out of him. How had he managed so prolific a penile pedigree? He hadn't. Turns out my uncle had spent all his money in the first few weeks and had turned to desperate measures for cash. He had been working as a stripper, doing mostly private parties. But naturally word got around. So for the rest of the year my father had to contend with the fact that a good number of the people on campus had effectively seen him naked. My friend Daniel got caught rubbing one out. He said he WSS his twin. Alex. Not a twin but a mistaken identity. I was working at local grocery store as a cashier. My next customer was a lady maybe mid-30s. She walked through my line, looked at me and said, "When did you start working here?" Me. UHH. "About a year ago, I guess." "Lady, does your dad know you work here?" Me. "I sure hope so, since my mom works in the pharmacy." A look of pure shock ran across her face as she gasped. Majid. I thought you were my son. I did not know how to react, I just stared at her. You look just like him. This is weird. Me. Well, a little, since you are his mom, I laughed. I never saw her alleged son to know if we looked that similar. And every time after that she would come there my line and call me Junior. That was when it got weird. Edit, a word. My friend Alex got caught rubbing one out. He said he WSS his twin. Daniel. His boyfriend tried to kiss me. I'm straight. My friend said hi to his brother one morning. Well, it turns out his brother was actually his own reflection in a window. His mom witnessed it and has never let him live it down. I have twin friends who went to separate high school and switched places on April Fools. Not embarrassing, but totally worked. My grandmother was an identical twin. Her sister passed away before I was born. She didn't like to tell stories from when she was little. But she did tell me one mistaken identity story. She was in their bedroom one night when they were really young and saw her sister through the window. She started talking to her sister to see why she was outside at night. Then she realized it was her reflection. My grandmother had mistaken herself for her twin. One day I was looking through her photo albums and came across some pictures of her twin in her coffin. That picture haunted me until I actually had to see my grandmother in her coffin. Not a twin, but had an embarrassing moment with one. I was close friends with a twin named Ariel but didn't know his twin Marvin at all. I was at the movies and saw Ariel. Ran over, hugged him and started talking to him. He was acting strange. He proceeds to tell me Ariel should be getting here soon. I literally froze for like 10 seconds and then just walked away awkwardly. When I was in grade school, a boy there had a crush on my twin sister who was in his class. He would sometimes get us mixed up and talk to me as if I were my sister. This wasn't anything new. I just play along and relay the information to her later. One day though, he came over and started rubbing my back as I was eating in the cafeteria and telling me how pretty my hair was. He left and I just thought it was weird. I was 6 and shrugged it off. As I was walking out of the cafeteria I saw him in the hall. And he walked over and grabbed my shirt from the front and looked down it at my chest. He went oh. Then ran away. I was very confused and talked about it later at the playground with my friends. They told me to tell the principal, who said he would handle it. 10 minutes later I see him being dragged out on the playground to say sorry. We were pulled out of that school the next year. Edit for grammar and spelling. A family friend was in the Air Force and while in boot she became mortal enemies with another woman who would constantly try to one-up everyone and win any argument for whatever reason. Our friend found her sleeping around with some other officers a few years later and got her discharged from service because of it. 10 or so years after that our friend's twin was walking around town on the opposite side of the country and this woman barges across the street and starts berating her for ruining her life and all this stuff. And the twin just laughed it off because she knew it was probably her sister's fault. Not a twin, but my boyfriend is. We were walking to class when a girl approached us. She confronted my boyfriend about why he stopped talking to her, hanging out with her. At first it was extremely awkward for me. But I figured out what was going on and laughed it off. Turns out she was a crazy girl that his brother saw talk to one time in their dorm laundry room and didn't talk again after that instance. Not an identical twin. But I worked retail for a few years. And had a lot of regular customers. This one girl would come in and she was awesome. She loved the product. Always made conversation over what she was doing. What she had done. We always connected. Sometimes she would initiate the conversation. Sometimes I would. Never really learned her name though. Which is pretty embarrassing in sales. About a year and a half after knowing her. She walks in one day and I wave to her. She excitedly waves back. All of a sudden. A perfect ducking clone. In a similar outfit but different colors. Walks out from behind her. My jaw literally dropped. I was in disbelief. I had been talking to two twin sisters thinking they were the same person for over a year. When I asked why, they never pointed it out to me. One goes, well, you just seemed to talk to me like you knew me. So I went with it. Surreal experience. Honestly. My flatmate and I dated identical twins while in university. Nothing happened. If you're a twin, you're bound to eventually have a few embarrassing stories. My whole life has been a system of awkward hugs or ducking a kiss from a girl and yelling, "Wrong one. Wrong one." Brother's girlfriend jumps in your lap while you're watching movie. It happens. My personal favorite has to do with situations that have occurred due to mistaken identity with my brother now that he's a Marine officer. I joined the Peace Corps shortly after he became an officer, yay. We're a sitcom setup. And worked as a teacher in Eastern Europe. Over drinks at a dinner during my service with friends of my host family. One of the gentlemen tells me that he used to be a Soviet helicopter pilot and asks me if I'd like to see his uniform. He brings down the full outfit in all its medieval glory. We're almost exactly the same size. And he lets me try it on. Thinking how cool this is. I post a picture online wearing it to show everyone. My brother calls me a few days later pissed as all hell because during his screening for a security clearance someone finds pictures of him wearing perfectly tailored Soviet regalia. He yells at me for getting brass up his ass and complains that he might get his clearance postponed. We still laugh about it. It was during those awkward middle school days and my twin sister got her first boyfriend. We had our first 8th grade dance and thought it would be so funny to switch places with each other to see if her boyfriend noticed he didn't and proceeded to go for the big first kiss. Didn't go so well. They broke up and it was an emotional 2 weeks for my poor little twinny. Our middle school. My two friends are twins. One boy, one girl. We rented a house in Wildwood, NJ after our senior prom. The girl twin brought her BF and the boy twin brought his GF. Me and the boy twin were sitting on the couch of the house when the girl twin's BF came home from a run, leaned over the couch and gave the boy twin a kiss. Hello. He didn't realize what happened until he stood up. It was hysterical to me because the twins resemble each other but not enough to make that mistake. A while back when I was in middle school I went over one of my good friend's house. His mom comes in. We start talking about random stuff. Then she asks my name. I had known this woman for 5-6 years at this point, so I was pretty damn confused. The conversation continues for a very awkward minute or two. Then my friend's mom walked in. Didn't even know she had a sister till that day. I'm not a twin, but my mom and aunt are identical twins and my girlfriend's parents own the only restaurant in my small town and they have told me how they thought my mother was having an affair. Also have had texts from friends that my mother was with another man. I send a picture of my uncle and it's always him. We are not identical twins. But my sister, 2 years older, and I were in the same grade for reasons I won't get into. Many people thought we were identical twins because we both had short brown hair and didn't wear makeup, which, I guess, made us the same person. At the end of senior year of high school we were going through a line of teachers we had over the previous couple of years. Shaking their hands and thanking them for teaching us and etc. It was required by the school. And my sister was right behind me. I shook one teacher's hand. A teacher neither I nor my sister had all throughout high school because she worked in a faculty we never got involved in. She smiled and said bye. Talked it. And I stepped away. Then my sister reached out to shake her hand. The teacher stared at her. She turned around to look at me. She looked between us. I thought you were the same person. Let me preface this by saying I'm a junkie. Heroin addict. Still am, just sober now. It was 2008. I had just got out of rehab and I was invited by my brother to join a gym he went to for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was smoking a cigarette outside and a guy was aggressive with me and he told me to put it out or he'd choke me out. I felt threatened and I threw the cigarette at his eyes and cheap shot knocked him out. Turns out he was a friend of my brother's who was a brown belt instructor at that gym. Not me, but a good friend is a twin. I only know one of the twins well and have spoken to the brother maybe twice in 15 years. My friend is the wild twin and the brother is very laid back. I live in a big town of 100,000 plus people with plenty of pubs and clubs. My friend ended up getting barred from most of them over a period of a few months and then started drinking out of town. His twin didn't know how bad it was until he was out one night with his wife and the bouncers let him in anywhere. Much to his wife's fury. Twin tried to tell the bouncers it's not me. It's my twin. Didn't work at all. Eventually settled when he rang his brother. Made him come into town and go round every bar to the bouncers and prove he wasn't the band twin. They took note of his ID. Kept the ban on for my pal and let his twin go on enjoying his night. One bouncer joked with them both and said he has heard that story hundreds of times and never thought he would see the day it was true. Why I love telling twin stories. When I used to live at home with my parents and sister, I was blow drying my hair in our bathroom. I was in my bra and undies because gosh it gets hot in there. And I had just gotten out of the shower. I crack the door an inch to get air. I am busy drying and I see my sister's boyfriend coming into the bathroom. He wasn't over before. I was like he and when I turned he freaks because he thought it was my sister. He was at the door waiting until my sister noticed him. Which backfired. Because it obviously wasn't her. It was me. It was more embarrassing for him because he felt bad. Honest mistake. Other times I'll be out and about and people will come up and hug me out of nowhere. I love hugs. But it's more embarrassing for the person when they realize I'm not my sister. I don't think it's a big deal but they always are so apologetic. In middle school, we had two boys everyone knew were identical twins. At lunch, Twin A had been arguing with this group of boys. Talking shit just to rile them up. Afterward, they went down the hall toward his locker, wanting to kick his ass. While they were on the warpath, Twin B just happened to turn the corner and ran into that group of boys. Completely oblivious about what had just happened at lunch because they had different class schedules. Twin B got his ass kicked for his twin's actions, not knowing the reason behind it. My brother and I both entered into the science